Hi there, I'm Christine the Gemini Stitcher and welcome to my sewing space. This vlog is part 3 of our Summer in New York Seasons of East dress. We've done part 1 where we went through all the notions, the sizing and the cutting out. Part 2 we did the sew along, so hopefully you will already have a wonderful Seasons of East dress completed. And in this vlog, we're going to look at hacking. So we want to get bang for our buck from our pattern, and we're going to look at hacking it into a top and also whether it will work as a jersey dress, and then we don't have to put that pesky invisible zip in. So let's look at doing it as a top and what you need to do to get a really good result. First thing that we need to do is to sort out our waistband. We just need our front and our back pattern pieces, and we're going to measure from under the arm to the centre on the front. Now I know from under the arm to the centre of mine measures on the front 26. Now obviously that's going to be times 2 for the whole of the front, so that's 52 centimetres for the front. And then you're going to do the same with the back piece from the underarm to the centre, and I know that that measures 29 centimetres because the back is bigger than the front. So that adds up to 58 centimetres, so 58 and 52 for the whole of the width of the waistband is 110 centimetres. So I need my waistband in total to measure 110 centimetres to fit all the way round. Now I've already cut my piece out here, and what I've decided is I'm going to cut it on the fold of the fabric, so then divide 110 by 2, which gives you 55 centimetres. So the length of my pattern piece needs to be 55 centimetres, and then the depth needs to be twice the width of the elastic, which is 5 centimetres deep, so that's 10 centimetres plus 2 centimetres for the seam allowances. So it needs to be 12 centimetres deep. So the pattern piece that I've done is 55 centimetres long and 12 centimetres deep. And that's the size that you need. The depth will be 12 centimetres. The length will be however you've calculated it, doing the measurements that I've just shown you there. And we've got our waistband pattern piece all ready. So here we go, I've got my fabric all laid out. This is a beautiful modal jersey that I've got recently from Pound Fabrics. I will pop the link below if it's still available. Don't forget, don't have any of your fabric hanging off the end of your table, particularly with jersey, because it will stretch out. So we just need to cut the back on the fold, two of the fronts, and then our waistband pattern piece that we've made ourselves, we want one of those cut on the fold to create the waistband piece. So I'll get those 3 cut out and then come back to you, and we can talk about how we're going to construct this beautifully simple little top. So I've got my pattern pieces all cut out. It's just the back on the fold, 2 of the front, and then our pattern piece that we've made for our waistband. And I will also put the calculations of how to do that in the description below. Now with no zip in this, and we've just added a waistband. It's a really simple hack, and hopefully we're going to end up with a stunning top. Now, the only other thing we're going to need apart from our thread is, remember when we did the neckline of the dress, we used forming tape, but that's because it was a woven fabric. This is a stretch fabric. So to keep that down and keep it in place, we're going to use something called Stretch Fix. Now, you can get Stretch Fix in two different formats. You can get it like this, where it's already cut into the strip for you and you just use it off a roll, and that's quite expensive for what you get. But you can also, I found that you can get it on the roll and buy the roll, and if you're going to be doing a lot of knit or jersey fabric sewing, I recommend that you do this. Now, I got this from Empress Mills, and I will bob the link below. This was from Amazon, and I'll bob the link for that as well. So it depends which way you want to go. So we're going to need Stretch Fix just for around that neckline, and then apart from that, just our thread. You can sew this on a standard sewing machine. If you've got a lightning bolt stitch on your machine, I'll pop an image of it up here, then you know what you're looking for. That's the stitch to use because it stretches with your fabric. If you haven't, you can just use a standard zigzag stitch, but don't use your straight stitch because the seams will snap and break because it's stretchy fabric and there's no give in the seam. I'm going to be doing mine on my trusty overlocker, and the hems at the arms I'm going to do on the sewing machine with a twin needle. So you can either, when you're doing your sleeve seams, do a twin needle or your zigzag or lightning bolt stitch. I think a twin needle gives it a nicer finish. So if you want to do the twin needle look and you haven't got a twin needle, add it to your shopping list. So all I'm going to do is follow the same instructions as before. We're going to sew the front up to the notch line, and before we do that with the front, we're going to put some of this Stretch Fix on. So I'll just show you that now before we start. So I'm at the ironing board, and this is one of the fronts of our bodice or top, and this edge here has got the notch on. This is the neckline edge, and I'm just going to put strips of Stretch Fix along this edge on both pieces before we start sewing. So put your iron on a medium heat. The Stretch Fix has, you can see which side has the glue on. It's a rough side, so put them smooth side up and line them up near the edge of your front neckline piece, and then you just iron over the paper slowly, and it will stick to your fabric. So that's one. Don't take that off yet. You need it to cool down. So I'm going to need another strip-ish just for this top bit. All this is going to do is help our seam stay in place. When we've sewn it together, and then just snip off the bit that you don't need. Now we're going to leave that paper on for now until we're ready to sew. So let's just leave it as it is. And then I need to do the other piece in the same way. Okay, so we're at the sewing machine. Now I've taken the backing off the two stretch fix pieces and I've pinned the fronts together up to the notch marking, which is where your neckband's going to start. And 3/8 of an inch seam allowance, we're going to do like we did with the other dress, lock it at the top, sew to the bottom and lock it off. Don't forget you're using your lightning bolt or your zigzag stitch because this is a stretch fabric. Okay, so we're back at the ironing board and I've got my front bodice pieces sewn together up to the notch only. So like we did with the other one, we're now going to press these seams open, and that stretch fix strip that we already put on there is going to help these seams stay in place. So you can see that is now stuck down, which is what we want. So then we're going to carry on and do the fold all the way to the top, as we did with our original one, and again that's stuck down nicely in place. And then the same with the other side. So that's the front bodice done now. I'm just going to go back to the sewing machine and I'm going to sew completely the underarm seams and the shoulder seams, and then we'll have a chat about how we're going to deal with that waistband. So I've finished the shoulder seams and the underarm seams of my top, just using the lightning bolt stitch on my sewing machine. Then that creates the back of the neckband when you press it, and I've also put a small piece of stretch fix in there, and that's holding that piece in place nicely. Now it's starting to look like a top. We need to look at how we're going to get that waistband on and the elastic in and sitting nicely. So here's our waistband that we created. We're going to join it together. We're going to sew the two shorter edges together, and then we're going to turn it right side out, so wrong sides together, fold it in half along the length this way, and press it all the way along so that creates a nice waistband shape. Here we go. I've done my waistband and it's nice and crisp, and the reason it is because as I've pressed it on the ironing board, I've used some spray starch, some best press as I've done it, and because mine was a modal jersey, it was rolling over at the ends. And it's not now, just that bit of best press on as I was pressing the waistband has made all the difference. So we're now going to pin this to the waist of the top, and all I'm going to do is make sure I've got the seam at the centre back and pin it all the way around. So we're going to put this, slip this on that way up, so that's the fold, so that goes at the top, and then we can pin it all the way around onto the top. So I've clipped it all the way around, so there's my waistband piece and it's been clipped that way up. All my blouse top is there. So we're going to start at that seam that's at the centre back. We're going to leave a gap. How much is that? Probably about 4 or 5 inches. And that's the gap we're going to use to thread our elastic through. So we're going to stitch from one to the other. If you want to put a couple of little marks on with your fabric pen, then you don't forget, then do that now. And then we'll get the elastic in and we're nearly done. Now we need to decide how long we need our elastic to be. So it's going to be about your natural waist. Get your length of elastic and overlap it until it feels snug but not uncomfortable. Overlap, add a few inches on, a couple of inches, mark it however you want. Cut the elastic and you've got your length of elastic then all ready. So we've got our elastic. We're going to get a safety pin. I like to use a nappy pin, so add these onto your toolkit because they don't undo as easy. So we're going to put the nappy pin on the end, and then a tip to make sure your elastic doesn't twist as it's going through because it's going a long way is to get your marker pen, put a cross on your elastic, and then obviously on the same side, at the other side, put a cross marking on that side, and then you know that they both need to be the same way up, and you know your elastic's not twisted as it's going through. So I'm going to thread this all the way through the waistband, then overlap it like that, and then sew a box on there and secure the elastic. So there we go, we've got our elastic all threaded through, and we just need to finish that little gap, so that just needs sewing up now, and then we're ready to give it its first try on sesh. So here we go, I've finished my top. I'm really pleased with it. The few things that I've done is I've sewn a seam down each side of the elasticated waistband just to make sure the elastic doesn't twist. Sometimes it can do when it goes in the washing machine. And because I've done that, I've made sure that there's no gathers in the front of the waistband. I've kept it flat as the pattern would have been, and all my gathers are in the back. The neckband's looking nice and smooth with our stretch fix in, and then I've also used stretch fix on the inside of the sleeves to press the seam allowance up, and then I've used a twin needle on my seams, on my hems, to make them a nice finish. You can just use your lightning bolt stitch to turn your hems up, or your zigzag stitch. I just prefer to use a twin needle. So I hope you found that interesting on how you can easily hack the Seasons of East Summer in New York dress pattern into a top by just putting an elasticated waistband in and using jersey fabric so that you've not got to worry about getting it on and off because there's no zip. You can replicate this and you can make the dress for the Seasons of East without that concealed zip. So follow all the instructions for part 2 where we went through how to sew the dress. Do everything exactly as that. The only difference is you're going to use stretch fix in the neckband seam, not forming tape. No. And you're not going to have to put the concealed zip in because you're using a stretch fabric. Hope you've enjoyed. If you have, please let me know. I always like to know, and if there's anything that I can do better going forward in this series, let me know that as well. I am just a home sewer like you. There is the Facebook group, so if you've got any questions and need any help, then put them in there and we will all help together. Please feel free to comment and give advice to other sewers, because we're all on this journey together. I'm not the expert, I'm just a home sewer like you guys. On that note, I'm going to go, but before I do, can I just mention that I do have a Ko-fi account. I don't mention it very often, and a Ko-fi account is where you can go on and pay a little bit of money in there towards me getting a cheeky latte while I'm sewing, and I would really appreciate it. I want these sew-alongs to be free and accessible for everybody, but it does take quite a bit of my time, and if you can possibly show me your appreciation, I would love that very, very much. So, happy sewing. I hope you've got your seasons of e-stress completed, or if not now, very soon. And I will see you next week when we're going to make a start on the next garment, which is the Mariko top from Notches Patterns. So happy sewing, enjoy, love you loads.